Community TV network.
Live.
Oh, we're going live? Sorry, we'll come back to that, guys. Sorry, have it go then.
Ready?
We are ready.
Hey, good afternoon, and welcome to We the Veterans TV show. I'd like to introduce myself as Mark Stukes, and I just want to. You're throwing me off. Oh, okay. Look at this camera. Okay. Can I start over? Start over?
You're live.
I'm live. Okay. Okay. Welcome to We the Veterans TV show. Brought from the perspective of looking for questions for veterans from the male perspective and the female perspective. But today, what we're going to do is come from the family perspective. We're going to interview a dynamic young lady, Ms. Diamond Britt. She is a former veteran's wife, a mother, a veteran business owner.
The Gulf War. He was in the Gulf War.
I see.
So with him being in the Gulf War, of course, I was still really young in the mind, didn't really know. I was an introvert at the time.
Okay.
So any place that my parents went is where I was going. Gotcha. That's where I found my safety.
Yeah.
So, I just...
So were you from a military family?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. As a matter of fact, my father is prior Marine Corps. So, raw. I love. That's right.
Yeah.
We are definitely a military family, and my dad. Thank you. Hats off to you, sir, for your service and for all those who have served. Thank you guys so much for that.
Yes, absolutely.
But yes, he was prior military, and of course that was a lot of the move and all that good jazz. But
and so it looks like seemingly you followed in his footsteps in choosing a husband.
You know, that was by mistake.
Really? Okay.
I didn't know.
Oh, and how old were you again?
I was 18.
18.
Yeah,
18.
I was 18.
Well, yeah.
I didn't know, of course. I didn't have a boyfriend before it.
Okay.
You know, so it was just like, okay, well now this guy likes me. He's like, oh, I like you. I'm like, I don't like you.
Okay, gotcha.
You know, so afterwards, my mom just happened to meet him one day because he came by, and he was like, you know, I want you to really like me, and I'm like, you know, I wasn't, believe it or not, I wasn't feeling boys even then.
Oh, okay.
It was just like, oh, you know, okay, you know, it's no big deal. I was happy being tucked underneath my parents.
Okay.
That was a safety for me. I wasn't your normal kid who wanted to go out and do this and do this. I did some things, but most everything I did with my family. So my family. So I was never really around like friends, you know, I didn't have the influence of the outside world, you know, if you will. So
and it was by choice, I'm sure, because I mean, it all paid off. I mean, you weren't interested. You had your focus. You had a focus at an early age.
I did.
What I see, yeah.
I did. Okay. As a matter of fact, my Uncle Joe from Dudley Hair Products.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So he
Here in
used to,
Washington.
yes,
Yeah,
that's right, in Washington, D.C.,
Gotcha.
and also North Carolina, and also abroad and everywhere else.
Awesome. Okay.
He used to tell us, you know, I thank God for him. I thank God for my Auntie Frances' husband, who they gave us challenges. And I'll never forget when Uncle Joe said to me, like, that you have to dress today for your tomorrow. So even if you look back on my school pictures, a lot of my pictures, I would be in vests, long sleeve shirts, in professional attire with slacks.
Awesome.
Because then I was very conscious. You know, he says, you never know who you're going to meet. You only have the first time to make an impression. So if you have only that first time to make an impression, you better make that impression quickly and on the first time. So if they meet you and you just have on some, you know, baggy pants or something like now in today's time, you might miss out on something.
All right, Uncle Joe, I'm telling you.
But then,
words to live by. Actually,
here's the beautiful part that my Auntie Frances' husband, though, he challenged me like this. So they were very well off, and he said, the one thing that he wanted me to do was, he said, if you graduate and you have some honors, I'll buy you your vehicle, whatever vehicle you want. I'll make sure that you are totally set for college. and then we will just go from there.
I see.
We have a deal. We were all sitting by the pool. I said, "Listen, school, you have a deal.
Yeah.
School for me, I don't have a distraction. School for me, I have a deal for you, huh?"
Right, there you go. Absolutely. There
So,
you go.
of course, I graduated early, and
You
once
met
I,
this husband, families.
oh
with the
wow,
family.
that's a huge difference. Okay, so let me say this: when you're a civilian family, you have your husband, your wife, and your children, and you have your other exterior family members, yes. Nevertheless, there aren't additional pressures that you have to consider when you're going to bed at night, except for your family.
Right.
As a military family, however, you have a whole lot more on your shoulders, and I think most civilians don't understand this. As a young female, I had the pressures that they are able to be free, that they can go to work without thinking about. Those are pressures that I don't think that even those in the military family really stop to consider for that person that is in the military, because you have your XO, you got your CO, you got your warrant officer, you got your supervisors who are your sergeants, your it's a lot of pressure. And then of course you have your MSOs that you got to do, all that stuff. And you got your PT test if you gain too many pounds, then the next thing you know,
so it could be stressful.
Even though we had our first child by then,
right, okay.
He went and took a second job on top of being in the military.
I see.
It was stressful because I was in an unfamiliar place.
Okay.
I'm away from my mom and dad, who are basically who I knew, and then all of a sudden I'm in this world. I'm an instant mom. I'm instantly married.
Okay.
I'm instantly in a world I'm totally unfamiliar with, and then I don't have any family to support me.
Right.
So the military says, "Oh, we have these support groups. We have all these different things. We'll make sure these things are available to you." Yet and still, there's nothing like your family if the only thing you know is your family.
Yeah, that's a lifeline.
Yeah.
And patiently, I do understand. Overwhelming.
For that call, in hopes that your family member makes it back home to you. That is a stress that nobody, except for those who are maybe media, who travel abroad during the war, who travel abroad during hard times, but that is an experience that you could never understand, except that you are military. I got one.
Oh, you have one?
Okay. Yeah, except that I knew that this was going to be a touchy conversation. So it's something that when you're a young female, especially, and I'm going to speak this part from the female perspective. In the next 2 days, one thing I can say, with the military families, there's usually such camaraderie that you don't even find in the civilian world as much anymore. Okay. You have those back people where you can say, "Hey, bro, look."
The neighborhood.
Yes, exactly. Okay, that community. There you go. That you can say, "Listen, all I have is corn." I got some mashed potatoes, and somebody else is like, "Oh, I got this." That camaraderie in the military is remarkable. You can't find it.
I hear you.
We have been out of the military. And I have yet to find that kind of community. Yes, okay. That community only resides in those that I literally had that community with in the military.
Okay, gotcha.
The new people that I meet, they are nothing like the community. Nothing like the community.
I see what you're saying.
In the military.
That's true. Yeah.
Right now, I was sick in the bed. I couldn't even get up. Guess who came? No civilian. Military family.
Neighbor, yeah.
I'm not talking about your pastors, your this, your that. None of them even came. Not that they didn't want to come.
Right.
But they traveled. But even the members in the church. Yeah. Guess who came? They were members of a church, but they were my military family.
Next door
Come on here,
yeah,
that community.
On base, on the base.
Exactly.
Yeah,
my former military family. I have a lot of community people out here on Facebook
Your followers?
that I can rely on more so than the people that live around me.
Okay.
I have these people who will call me day in. Sis, how are you doing? I'm praying for you. Oh, sis, I want you to know that everything is going to be all right. They got that word of encouragement like Paul. But then you got these ones that are here with you right here. Oh, I got your six. Look, we're side by side. I got you. But you're right here with me.
Awesome.
And you don't do...
TV show, we are brought to you by In the Community Network. And what we are speaking about is the military family from a family perspective. And we have Miss Diamond Britt giving her all in all and testimonial. And we love it and appreciate it. And we have more questions for her, if you will.
All right.
Okay, let me see. Let's say, what emotional effects does the military life manifest on the children? In terms of their mindset, the things that they actually go through, because children don't like to talk about what's going on with them. You really have to pull it out. But I can only imagine when Daddy's gone, Mommy's gone. There's stuff going on.
Oh yeah.
So
Oh yeah.
What is your view?
You know, thankfully, I thank God my kids were small.
Oh, okay.
And don't even really remember.
Oh, okay, right.
But there is a subconscious type of thing that still lasts if you don't break it. Should not always be opened to knowing everything about what's going on in the household.
I agree.
Now, granted, I wasn't going to lie to them.
Right.
Oh, you know, your dad will be home later on. No. Daddy's at work. He has to stay at work for a little while.
Keeping it real.
Keeping it real, but at the same time, protecting them while they're young. Okay. You understand? So it was like, okay. You know, and then when they started getting old, my middle daughter, she was saying how she went through and became emotional. Okay. So she started finding herself in a position of what's called emo. It was where emotional.
Gotcha.
And kids with emotional difficulties and not knowing how to handle that considered themselves emo.
Okay.
Yeah. So she was just like, you know, I'm just, you know, she clammed up. She would make sure that she's smiling on the outside. But in the inside, she never talked about how she was actually suffering. So even the younger daughter and even my eldest daughter, not until they became adults did they verbalize what was really happening with them.
So teachers never picked up on things like that? Something's going on, she probably needs a little...
Because if you don't know how to deal with military families, and especially if you're in a military area like we are here in Washington, D.C.,
true.
If you don't really know how to handle that, you're going to fall by the wayside, because people coming back from the military with TBI, which is traumatic brain injury, PTSD, you have military sexual traumas, you know, people being raped, men and women in the military. There's all kinds of things. You know, you have those who are speaking derogatory things to those who are, you know, underneath them, you know, crying every night, waking up in nightmares. And I would be rocking in the closet like, oh God, what am I supposed to do? I never told my husband for 2 months.
2 months?
The day before my birthday, it happened. And I said, I was saved at the time, thank God. But I was just like, I don't know how to deal with this. I went to my bishop. I talked to my bishop. You know what my bishop told me? He said, go and talk to my wife. I went to his wife and I told his wife what happened. And I said, I want to talk to my husband, but I'm afraid of what he's going to do. I said, because I know he's going to go off. You can't have a wife who's a virgin and then now somebody has touched your wife. Do you understand what that does to him? And I asked her, what do I do? You know what she said to me? She said, well, what do you want me to do? I said, what? I said, I'm asking you for help. She didn't have any help. The church didn't have anything to tell me. So I was falling literally away at the seams. I couldn't get in my car because it happened in my car. I couldn't get in my car. I couldn't drive a car. I couldn't leave my house. I was afraid to go outside my door. So for months, finally, one day I came in And he was asleep on the couch, and he was leaning back. And when he leaned back, I came in, I saw him sleep. I just knelt right at his feet. I couldn't take it anymore. And I just knelt at his feet, and I just cried. And he woke up, and he saw that I was crying, and he asked me, what's going on? And I had to tell him, I said, but what I asked him to do, I said, if I tell you, promise me, you will not call the police. Promise me, because I knew the guy had threatened my life. He threatened my children's life, and he threatened my husband's life and career. So I knew that I did not want to have to deal with that. However, after all of that, and he was upset, he was angry, and I knew.
Yes.
I knew.
Take action.
And I was like, you promised me. So I thought it was over, only to get at the door, and it was the police.
Absolutely.
And I felt so betrayed. I felt so mind you, I'm still a kid. I'm still a kid. Okay. All I knew then is my husband. So I'm like, oh my God, like, you called the police? And he was like, yeah. I was like, oh my God. And I freaked out. I just freaked out. I shook. It was so bad. And they took me through the same thing they took me through. It took Michael Jackson through. They took pictures, all kinds. I felt so horrible. So when people say, hey, I don't know what to do. I've been raped. What do I do? How do I get through this? I'm telling you from experience. I'm telling you from experience where I've been. I thank God I've never been there again. And I know for sure I won't be back there again.
Amen.
Because the training that I have now,
there you go.
had I had it during the time, it wouldn't have happened. But I thank God that I survived.
There's a spirit.
And definitely, after going through all of that, persevering, our marriage still sustained. It was difficult, but it still sustained. And the man who was the warrant officer, I found out he had a wife, 2 children, a male and a female, and he lived in North Carolina. And they came back to us. They saw all the evidence. They saw the scratches and all kinds of things. And they processed, of course they charged him and everything. And then he told them, no, but it was consensual. But then they had to go back and look at the videotape and see that it absolutely was not. On the exterior of the gym where my car was parked right in the front.
Gotcha. Okay.
So when they checked the video footage, then they realized he lost all of his benefits and all of those things. Now, granted, I wouldn't have wanted that to happen for Lina to my parents because I found my safety there. I knew that if I got to my parents, I made it.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I knew I made it. I don't know about that. That was always my shield.
Yeah, that got you.
I knew that if I can make it to my mom and dad, for me, it was mom's side, who's American, lived there. So, of course, I always went back to that family because my other family is in Jamaica.
Okay.
So, I always found myself most closest to those in New Bern, North Carolina. It's no big deal.
Okay, one other question. How was communication during the absence of your spouse? Communication, talking with him, getting in touch with him, how frequent, how not less frequent?
That.
Within itself, as I can imagine, being a stressor. Yeah.
There you go. There you go. You got me doing this again, huh?
All right. Okay. You got your tissues, right? Okay.
that alone, that was a major stress. And I know, I remember.
Take your time.
I recall one night he called me, and this was in the heat of just before the Gulf War took. That I love them. And so we were talking, and the line cut.
Oh man. Okay. Oh boy.
I screamed. I sat at the phone all night. I did not sleep, waiting for that phone to call back. Didn't get the call. So my mom, I was at my parents. My mom I was sitting watching the news all that night, and this is when, if any of you guys remember, all the missiles was up in the sky.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm looking at this, and I'm devastated. And sure enough, there was a next day, the news station was doing a reporting, trying to check on our military personnel.
Yeah.
And just as I had just got up off my knees praying, and I said, God, I need peace. If you just let me see him, just let me know that he's okay. And the cameraman turned the camera.
Wow. Awesome.
And I saw him.
Amen.
And I called for my mom. I was like, Mom. And my mom came running upstairs, and she looked. I said, it's Kevin, look. Yeah. And so she goes, oh my God. Thank you, God. And so we just started praising God at that point.
Right from there, yeah.
So, and so, yeah, that.
I see he didn't mollycoddle, the situation. He kept it real, because as serious as it was, he just prepared you a little bit. And that's just a life. That's just life, You can't go trying to babyfy the situation.
No.
He knew what was going on, and he wants you to know pretty much what was going on. And just in case, tell my daughter.
Next time they showed it, we had already had the video camera waiting to record it.
Oh, yeah. Okay,
so that we could show him, and we showed him.
There you go.
Yeah.
Awesome. That is awesome. Yeah. I mean, you never know, but our higher power
absolutely
always works, and he comes when you call him. Amen.
That's right. That's right.
Okay. Let me just sign out here right now. We thank you, Mrs. Diamond Brett, for coming on our show in the Veteran's Life. Thank you all for joining us out there. I'd just like to say, in the community network appreciates your viewership, as well as the Veterans Network.